He's got 38.7 kilometres today in which to claw back that deficit and try to give himself a lead which he can defend to Madrid. The contenders all rode the route around Burgos yesterday, and they all agreed that it was hillier and harder than the roadbook suggested. The question of who that helped was less clear-cut.
So the certainty that we've all been craving in this Vuelta is not too far away. The questions that everybody has been asking right the way through the opening 16 stages will now be answered. What can Tom Dumoulin do on this course? This is his day, the one he's been waiting for, where he can show himself and his strength and potentially make the statement that will win him the Vuelta. How much time, though, can he take out on these 38.5 kilometres? We've had a look at the course now, David. We've seen that it's perhaps different from what we might have expected, and what lessons can we learn from the early riders going off?
Well, it's actually, the fastest time at the moment is 47 kilometres an hour, which means that, relatively speaking, it's not a super fast course, which isn't conducive to Tom, to be fair, because generally he is, as being a pure time trialist, he needs it to be fast as possible, because that's when he can make the big difference against the small climbers who simply can't put out as much power as him on the flat. So, but still, I mean, the good thing is, he said it starts off quite hard. We can see he's already going, I mean, it almost looks like prologue speed, the speed he's going through those corners. We're coming up, it's got quite a heavy first section, goes slightly uphill, which from my experience is kind of the best way to start a time trial, because you know straight away if you're feeling good or not, and you don't have to, you can kind of push into it and you get the confidence of feeling good, or you know immediately if it's a bad day.
Rafa Majka in third place, trying to defend a podium position on the Vuelta. Looking cool. He's a cool customer, Majka, but he might find he's got a struggle here in the shape of Tom Dumoulin. Rafa Majka then on the start ramp and about to begin his effort. Off he goes then. 16 seconds separating Rafa Majka and Tom Dumoulin. As things stand, that is going to be shaken up, I'm sure, by the end of today. What are you expecting from the pole?
I'd expect, out of the non-specialists in front of him, who he's got Joaquim Rodriguez and Fabio Aru, you expect Majka to be the best of the climbers, let's say, in the time trial. He's proven himself to be an all-round strong rider. And here you get a great look at Tom Dumoulin. That's a pure time trialist. The way he just locks in, tucks his head in, he's almost hiding from the wind. And that's what you see, that there's the best guys, they don't need to go into wind tunnels, they don't need to do lots of testing. They go out there and they know what's the best thing to do, and you can see he tucks himself completely in, goes at very smooth cadence, his upper body barely moves, and he occasionally peeks his head up to see where he's going. Well,
he will have had, like all the riders yesterday, just to have a look at the course, and he will have ridden it a couple of times, I'm sure, so that he knows every lump, bump and corner, and he will know exactly how to measure his effort. As Maxime Bouet just crosses the line in 22nd place. The first split time comes at 13.5 kilometres, and it's not always the rider who passes through that first split time and sets the best pace who ends up high up in the overall in the standings. Fabio Aru looking incredibly relaxed, his little nose plaster there just giving himself the extra ventilation he's going to need. I'm sure that's the belief anyway. Every little bit helps here, but he looks focused, looks relaxed, and he has just 1 second, of course, separating him from the race lead after yesterday. No longer in the red jersey, the white jersey will have to do for him today. But again, not a pure time trialist. Fabio Aru about to find out what his Vuelta holds. We're about to learn a lot about what Fabio Aru is capable of doing in a time trial when the race lead is at stake, and it really matters. He has 1 minute and 50 seconds to defend to Tom Dumoulin, and just 1 second separating him from Joaquim Rodriguez.
It's interesting to see both Fabio Aru and Tom Dumoulin both are carrying gels tucked up inside their shorts. Tom Dumoulin only had one, but Fabio Aru has two, so I don't know what that means, but it goes to show even these guys who are ultra-endurance athletes, they get scared of these events. I mean, it's only 47 minutes long for the fastest rider so far, but they're still going to want to fuel up, and they've got a small bottle and they have that gel, and it'll probably take that about a third of the way through, I'd imagine, for Tom Dumoulin. And sometimes it's as much just to keep the sugar going in your brain, because that's the problem. It's so physically that can keep going. Sometimes you start to just lose your lucidity towards the end, so it's just that little spike to get you to the finish.
Well, we won't know for something like another 13 minutes quite how well this man has attacked the first part of the course. Nelson Oliveira went through the first split time in 17 minutes and 53 seconds, and his time at that first timing point was the fastest. So that'll be our first benchmark as to what Tom Dumoulin is doing. And again, it's all relative now to what Fabio Aru and behind him Joaquim Rodriguez.
I mean, this is kind of how modern cycling is going. A few years ago, the pure climbers, their time trial positions would have been terrible, but Fabio Aru there looks fantastic.
Rodriguez, a picture of focus, just making the last little adjustments there to his computer on his bike. His right fingers gripping the brake, holding himself very still there. One flex of the spine. This is a big day for Joaquim Rodriguez. He has 1 minute and 51 seconds over Tom Dumoulin, and he knows that if he gets it right today, he can still win this Vuelta. All is not lost by any means. He's in the red jersey, he's exactly where he wants to be, but this is a big moment. The clock ticking down then, the leader of the Vuelta about to get down off the ramp and out onto the course to find out whether or not he has enough in the locker to defend his time against Tom Dumoulin. It's a slide rule event. It's almost impossible to predict with any certainty what the outcome of this time trial will be, and with that, the entire Vuelta a España. All the main men of this Vuelta out on the road. There's no one left to go down the start ramp. They are all fully committed now to this time trial. Joaquim Rodriguez in the red jersey, the last man off the start ramp, knowing that he has to defend against everybody further up this road on this rolling terrain out of Burgos and back home. Tom Dumoulin, the fourth from last rider to go out, is further up the road. Meanwhile, though, Maciej Bodnar, who went off very early today, riding for this team, Tinkoff Saxo, is in the hot seat, and he's set a very good time that has yet to been bettered by anyone out on the road. 47 minutes and 5 seconds for Bodnar. That is the time to beat for all these men if they want to win the stage. But there's a separate battle going on, and that is the battle for GC.
And you can see here with the big windmills behind, they've got a slight headwind to start, which is, and it's a little bit uphill, kind of, it is rolling, but it seems to kind of be generally going further up than it is down. So, and here we have Tom Dumoulin coming on. You see the wind slightly from the left as the course does twist and turn, but the body is going to turn like slightly left back into that full headwind on the slight false flat. And yet you can see he just maintains his form. You see very little rocking. He's keeping a very high cadence, and that shows how much control he's in. He's not kind of stressing. He's not tired, because if he was, he'd be getting the gear wrong. But he seems to be keeping what we call his form just in a perfect state.
Further back, Rodriguez, well, it's not ideal, but this isn't his speciality, is it? That body position just doesn't quite look right.
No, we can see here just why everyone expects Tom Dumoulin to put so much time into Joaquim Rodriguez. Whereas this was what's been so impressive about Joaquim Rodriguez, and whereas you have Fabio Aru here, who has a much more similar style to Tom Dumoulin. So although he's a pure climber, we put Joaquim Rodriguez and Fabio Aru very much in the same pedigree when it came to climbing. Although Joaquim Rodriguez doesn't stand a chance physically or even aerodynamically against Tom Dumoulin, Fabio Aru does bear a striking resemblance to Tom Dumoulin when it comes to time trialling.
Of course, the rest day was ample time for everybody connected with the Vuelta and the entire cycling fandom and cycling world to get the record books out and look at the way that these four compare down the years in terms of time trialling ability. And it's so difficult to draw hard and fast conclusions, but obviously Tom Dumoulin is the class act here, and obviously 9 times out of 10 he beats all of the rest of them, if not 99 times out of 100. But the battle between the others, for example, the time differences that you might expect between Rafa Majka and Fabio Aru, it's much harder to kind of figure out, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is why there's been so much talk of Dumoulin, because in the top 10 on GC we have at the moment, there aren't really pure time trialists there, whereas as often we have at the end of a Grand Tour, you'll have guys who can climb and are recognised time trialists. A lot of the guys we have here at the Vuelta, they are pure climbers who find themselves battling against each other in a time trial, whereas Tom Dumoulin in the past, he's been a pure time trialist that has never actually fought against the climbers. And you can just see, I mean, look at that, it's a completely different rider to the other guys he's racing against.
So, Tom Dumoulin there, confirmation that he is fastest through the first split time. He is the first man to have bettered the time of Nelson Oliveira, who's the fastest through that first split time. So, that's an indication of Dumoulin and his form.
Here we have Mikel Landa finishing, who is in pure domestique duty now. Although we know he can time trial well, here his job now for the next few days is to look after his leader and protect him, Fabio Aru. So he will be today conserving energy. That will be his job. That's what he will have been told to do.
Well, as this man Rafa Majka pointed out, the Vuelta doesn't end today, even though there will be some sort of semi-decisive blow delivered today. Either way, some people will find their Vuelta aspirations dead and buried. Others will still be in the hunt. The question is how many? And Majka was very keen to point out that there are mountains still to come and potentially days when the GC position will shift again.
And here we can see how heavy this is. I mean, you can see again the windmills of the headwinds slightly uphill. It's a lovely road, he'll see that flag and he knows he's turning left as the wind's only going to get stronger. So it's important for him to stay in this position as much as possible. The moment he gets out of the saddle, he starts to slow down. That's often the difference between the time trialists and the climbers. The time trialists can hold their position much longer, whereas the climbers are much more, they're conditioned to being out of the saddle, which in a time trial you do not want to do.
Dumoulin unbelievably low against the frame. I mean, he's getting his chin almost down onto the handlebars there. Such an enormous amount of pressure on Tom Dumoulin's shoulders. Some of it coming from within, some of it coming from outside, some of it coming from his country.
I mean, this will be a very important day because it's not only that, it's the fact that the pressure will be putting on himself. He knows this is the day where he can put time into the climbers, where the other days he's been defending. This is his time to be offensive, and he will be trying. He can't get carried away. So it'll be interesting to see whether that first time check was him being controlled or whether he's actually maybe taken. That's what we'll see, whether he's handled the pressure well or not.
So a very good time from Rosetto from Cofidis there, coming over in 7th place.
This is brilliant for Tom Dumoulin coming up here on Mikel Nieve, who is his 2-minute man. Now, to catch a 2-minute man after 21 minutes racing, that's quite an achievement, even for Tom Dumoulin. Normally, when you're racing against the GC guys in this final week, you expect them to be quite similar in their kind of physical, the fact they're there after almost 3 weeks racing. But this is phenomenal. And look at the speed he's coming by at, Matt.
Well, he's going to rip past Mikel Nieve, Tom Dumoulin, who ripped into the first part of the course and posted the best time after 13.5 kilometres, going 9 seconds faster than Nelson Oliveira, whose time itself looked almost unbeatable at that first split time. But Dumoulin showing all of his class and at the moment holding nothing back. And if anything, he seems to be engaging more and more with the effort.
Well, I mean, this goes to show that he does seem to be pacing well. He's kept the same cadence the whole time. His position isn't shifting much. His upper body is still fairly stable. And that will have given him a massive boost. He will have had in his head he needs to catch Mikel Nieve. And there you can see Tom Dumoulin is not smashed at times, but we have seen in the previous results that the guys coming through there, the fastest, tend to slow down as the race goes on. So now it'll be interesting to see how Tom Dumoulin comes through the second time check.
What a contrast it is, the smooth progress of Tom Dumoulin for this rather laboured effort from the red jersey of Joaquim Rodriguez, and this is going to be hurting the man.
Well, it's not the first time that this has happened to him. I mean, he has in the past been in this position in the final week of a Grand Tour.
Well, the wind will be playing its part here, and of course these are the variables you get with riders going off several hours. The leaders go off several hours after the first guys have gone off the start ramp, and that might well be a factor in Bodnar's effort, that his time has stood up so well, although he's a very good individual time trialist in his own right, so perhaps that's no great surprise that he posted such a fast time.
No, I mean, that's always a concern. Often in these time trials, they're very much point to point. You'll start somewhere and go 40 kilometres in one direction, in which case that wind change can have a massive effect. But this is a course where it actually starts, does a loop round and come back. So even if the time differences are a little bit different here, they're going to do a U-turn somewhere further up the course and come back. So if it was a tailwind for Bodnar here and it's flipped, that means it's a headwind for Dumoulin now, but it'll be a tailwind later. So it will all end up balancing itself out at the finish.
Well, there is a comparison of the average time set so far by Dumoulin and Fabio Aru, and if those are to be believed, that's a significant difference, isn't it? 45.7 to 43, I think, 0.9.
Yeah, and that's the first time check. So I mean, we can see that he's put a lot of time into Fabio Aru. So although Fabio Aru he does look amazing, he's actually going significantly slower than Tom Dumoulin.
44 seconds slower than Tom Dumoulin through the first time check. So, well, it's still balanced on a knife edge, but if that kind of differential continues, you would imagine that Dumoulin is possibly, at least as far as Aru is concerned, riding himself into the red jersey. Joaquim Rodriguez then will be the last rider through the first split time, where we'll get a sense of how much time he's lost. We know that he's lost substantial amounts of time. We know that Tom Dumoulin went through that time point at 17 minutes and 44 seconds.
So he's already a minute and a half behind. So although it's if he hasn't gone through yet and we haven't seen it, he's already significantly behind Tom Dumoulin. And this is the dream situation for Tom Dumoulin, because even though he's got all this pressure and people have been talking about how much time he's going to take out of these climbers, he wouldn't know. He doesn't know. This isn't a situation he's been in before. He's never raced GC in the third week of a Grand Tour. He's never been up there kind of in this position where not only is he aiming to win it, he's aiming to try and put as much time into people as possible. And currently he is doing, this is the dream situation for him. He's already got 44 seconds on Fabio Aru at the first time check. He's got a minute 11 on Joaquim Rodriguez after the first time check. So if he continues into this, he's going to put that dream plus 2 minutes into both of them.
1 minute and 11 seconds, the time difference between Rodriguez and Dumoulin at the first time split. And remember, 1:51 was the total amount of time he has to make back Dumoulin on the red jersey of Rodriguez. Aru holding it all together. He'll know that he's lost a bit of time at that first intermediate split, and he'll have to dig very deep now to make sure that he's not losing even more on the road. Dumoulin's flying up front, but Aru is holding it all together, at least for now. 44 seconds. We know that he was down at the first timing point, and the next one comes at 27.5 kilometers in something like 32 minutes. So in about 6 minutes we'll know what Aru's race, or at least the middle part of his race, has been like, as the course just rears up a little bit here before the final climb and then descent into Burgos.
And it is horrible to know you're that far behind after the first time check, because 44 seconds after 13 kilometers is a significant chunk of change, and it's hard to turn that around. So he'll have that in the back of his head, and sometimes you'll even go as far as telling your direct sportive not to tell you on the radio what the time gaps are, because it can affect you that much psychologically. You've just got to do your own race. I mean, that's why I call it the race of truth. Go out there and do the fastest time you can do to the finish line, and not worry about other people, because if you start to worry about other people, sometimes that's where it can all undo itself.
It'll undermine everything if you know that it's a pursuit in vain. Rafa Majka, some 16 seconds slower than Fabio Aru through that first time gap, and a minute slower than Tom Dumoulin. So he's lost, in theory at least, over a minute to Tom Dumoulin. As Dumoulin approaches the second intermediate sprint, or into that part of the course.
And he will have the information. I mean, I think he'll be told what's going on, and there we go. It's like he's come through 31:48, so that's 40 seconds, so almost 30 seconds faster. So that's a great time, 52 average. So he really is significantly faster than everybody else there.
So 31:41. The best split time up to that point was set by Bodnar, 32:19. So that is a huge advantage.
38 seconds, which is great, because that goes to show that he has paced his effort. He was only 9 seconds ahead of Oliveira, who was the fastest the first time check, whereas Oliveira then slowed down and found himself in further down 5th or 6th or 7th in that second intermediate check. So far, the only person to actually maintain is Tom Dumoulin. This
is all working out perfectly for the Dutchman at the moment. And still he maintains that fantastic position on a bike, and still it doesn't look like it's a great effort, but he's grinding a huge gear now. And he'll know, because he will want the information in his ear, that he's riding himself right into the race lead of the Vuelta. And barring catastrophe, that is exactly where he is heading. And towards history at the moment.
I mean, this is, we haven't seen a sort of performance like this in a long time, in the sense that it's pure time trialist, but he's actually been probably one of the best climbers in the race, and sometimes you compromise that. When you're a great climber and work hard at that, you lose your time trialing ability, yet he seems to be the opposite.
As Gianluca Brambilla from Ethics Quickstep pushes himself over the line in 26th place, 2 minutes and 13 seconds down on Bodnar, who continues his lone vigil in the hot seat, but he'll be aware of the damage that Tom Dumoulin is doing to his time. Rafa Majka then behind Dumoulin, but the gap between him and Dumoulin is growing with each pedal turn. Dumoulin's a speck in the distance. Started off 2 minutes ahead of him, but will be at least 3, maybe 4 minutes ahead of him by the time Majka makes it over the split time, unless Majka's found something from nowhere in terms of getting back into this race.
No, I mean, we can see, and it's always the kind of the worst case scenario when you're in a position like Micah, when you know the guy that we call the minute man, although at this point they're starting at 2 minutes intervals. He knows he's never going to see Tom Dumoulin. Sometimes it's quite good to have a rider that's setting off in front of you. You know, as a bad time trialist, that you can use as your carrot. But there's no carrot for Micah today. He knows he's out there, and the only person he's got to worry about is the rider behind him, maybe catching him.
Well, Aru is going faster than him. Fabio Aru is the man behind him on the road, but it would be extraordinary if Aru managed to catch Micah.
There you go, you can see he's almost in his biggest gear there, Tom Dumoulin. Yeah, that's where you see a pure time trialist, how they're good at kind of, even when they're going this fast, they won't put in the biggest gears, keeping his cadence up. 'Cause if he goes into that bigger gear, he'll start to lose momentum and kind of start to bog down. But he's staying cool and controlled, and that position still is static.
You can see Alejandro Valverde, who had the third best time at the second intermediate sprint there. You can see his jewellery hanging down underneath his chin. This is a very good time trial for him. 46.55, so he's not going to beat Bodnar's time, but he's going to get frighteningly close to it. Frightening, that is, in respect of all the other GC rivals in the top 10. He started the day far too low down for his ambitions, and he's going to make good on that with a blistering time in the end. Second place, and just 4 seconds down on the time of Bodnar. So he's just got faster and faster and faster throughout that time trial. A wonderful ride from Alejandro Valverde, which in the final shakedown will catapult him up the overall standings. Wow, this is a long, lonely ride here from Rafa Micah through the fans. He won't be hearing that noise. It'll be scant encouragement because he knows this is a pretty fruitless defensive rearguard action in the face of an extraordinary effort from the man who started just 16 seconds behind him in the overall classification, who will certainly be denying him a podium place. The question is, what will happen to Joaquim Rodriguez, whether he can just hold on. 2 minutes and 11 seconds down on Tom Dumoulin at the second intermediate point for Rafa Micah, so he's just hemorrhaging time.
So Tom Dumoulin basically at this moment is doing, he's operating at what everybody said would be the kind of the uppermost sort of effort that he could maintain, which is putting close to 3 minutes into the climbers. And to be fair, even I thought that was kind of a bit ambitious. I was being conservative at 2 minutes, so he's doing something that I don't think even he would have even dared believe.
Aru then approaching the second intermediate sprint point. He'll know that he's lost a lot of time to Tom Dumoulin, and that Tom Dumoulin is continuing, if anything, to take even bigger chunks out of the rest of the race. He took 2 minutes and 11 seconds out of Rafa Micah, and he's taken 1 minute and 44 seconds out of Fabio Aru. So that is edging very, very close now to the 1 minute 50 seconds. Just 6 seconds more in what remains of the race Dumoulin has to take out of Fabio Aru to get past him.
The thing is, and Tom Dumoulin will know this, he needs to take more time than that. He needs to take enough time to kind of give him that buffer for when it comes to the final mountain stage on Saturday, because at the moment, just finishing within 5-10 seconds doesn't leave the race over. The opposite, actually. It means that all the climbers will be aggressive. He needs at least a buffer of 30 seconds to stand up a chance, because that's what we've seen him losing in these final summit finishes, is approximately 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that that big mountain stage on Saturday is not a summit finish, but it is a climb within the final and then a descent to the finish line. So there could potentially be an opportunity, at least for the rest of the race, if they feel that it's within their compass to attack Dumoulin on that. Assuming now that Dumoulin is the red jersey at the end of the day on that penultimate stage of the Vuelta. And certainly riders like Micah have indicated it ain't over just yet. But Dumoulin will be thinking, I can put this to bed right here and right now. Aru, under 10 kilometres. Quintana, 7th best at the second intermediate check, and he is coming towards the finish line, and it's a good time from Quintana. And indicative perhaps of the nature of this course, that there is an amount of climbing in it, but certainly this is a good ride for Nairo Quintana. 3rd place at the moment, 27-28, the clock just ticking over. Will he hold on to 3rd place? Valverde, his teammate, came in a second. Well, it's dipped a little bit, but he holds at the moment for 5th place, and that's an exceptional ride, just 29 seconds down from Bodnar. So both the Movistar riders coming good in the end. That's a great time trial from Nairo Quintana.
They do seem to be the best of the rest when it comes to the climbers. I mean, this does bode well for both of them for these final stages. It means that they're not absolutely buckled. They are coming good, and they've not given up yet.
That's how things stand then at the finish line at the moment. The red jersey of Joaquim Rodriguez. This is turning into a horrible day for him in every sense of the word, psychologically, physically, and in terms of his race lead. This is a devastating ride for him. He knows that this isn't his terrain, he knows that he can only defend, but he still might have hoped for a better performance than this as Rodriguez comes through the second split 2 minutes and 38 seconds down. And what about that 2010 Vuelta when he was in the leader's jersey? He's been here before, hasn't he?
Exactly, this isn't the first time it's happened to him. He was in the leader's jersey when he coming to the final time trial on the third week of the Vuelta in 2010. And Nibali did the same thing. We saw a lonely ride from Joaquim Rodriguez that day as well, where we saw the jersey just disappearing up the road.
Well, Dumoulin is doing everything that he needs to do to wrestle the red jersey from Joaquim Rodriguez, all going beautifully to plan. Machi Bodnar has still posted the best time. He's still on the hot seat. Alejandro Valverde in the finish line, just 4 seconds slower than Bodnar. But Dumoulin is clearly the fastest man out there on the road. And at the last time check, relative to Fabio Aru, just 6 seconds separated them in the virtual GC.
And here we have Tom Dumoulin coming in, and he knows now he's only got 2 or 3 minutes, and this is over. He'll know all the time checks, and now he's just got to get there. Whereas normally he'd just be happy about winning the time trial, now it's about getting there and taking as much time out of the climbers as possible.
Well, the leader's time was 47.05. That was Bodnar's time. It's going to be smashed by Tom Dumoulin. I'm almost certain of that. So it's something under 3 minutes now that Tom Dumoulin has to ride out. And now I would imagine even a disciplined rider like Tom Dumoulin, so patently proven himself to be, will start to allow inevitably his thoughts to wander now about the size of his achievement and the statement he's just made to the Vuelta. The statement he's also made to Joaquim Rodriguez and the other climbers. Because, well, that rather tells the tale, doesn't it? That's Dumoulin's pace at the top.
The only thing that really tells is the fact that Dumoulin has not dropped off. You'd expect those lines below. We would expect them to be slower because they're not specialists. But as they're not specialists, they haven't paced their effort right, and they have slowed down through each time check, whereas Dumoulin has kept the same pace.
Esteban Chavez, who of course was the race leader in the opening week, just gaping wide open, his mouth there, and he nods as he crosses the line. And 17th place, actually. That's a very respectable ride from Esteban Chavez. He's lost 1:39 relative to Bodnar for the time being, so that's a good ride as well. 45 minutes now, Tom Dumoulin, and he's into the barriered section, so he'll know that the finish line is going to rear up close to him now. His position totally unchanged since the moment he got into that aero tuck, having rolled off the ramp, and that is the sign of a time trialist.
He is. I mean, the style he has is one of the best I've seen in years. It's just so fluid, and you can see the way he tucks his head in. It is, and the cadence has always remained the same. He's never gone into a bigger one. He's kept it very controlled. But you can see the grimace, and you can see he's just tucking his head down, grimacing more and more, because this is what happens. It's like, it just looks, I know what that feels like. It's horrible.
Well, he knows that every second counts, and he needs to build up the big buffer. He has mountains still to get over if he's going to win this Vuelta. He'll be almost certainly in the leader's jersey, barring a miracle or an accident. Tom Dumoulin will lead the Vuelta today, and he'll be honing in on a famous, extraordinary Grand Tour win. A win for Holland after 35 years since Joop Zoetemelk last won the Tour de France. They have not produced a Grand Tour winner, but are we looking at one now? Dumoulin delivered everything that he was asked to on this time trial to perfection, and he will lead the Vuelta into the closing stages. This is an interesting battle developing between Rafa Majka and Joaquim Rodriguez, who's just tumbling down the overall ranking. Started the day in the race lead by 1 second, Rodriguez. Majka started it in third, 1 minute and 35 seconds behind Rodriguez, but it's not inconceivable that that 1 minute 35 will be gobbled up on the road.
But you can see
Rodriguez will be out of contention. As Mikel Nieve, who started after Tom Dumoulin, let's not forget, makes his way across the line. So probably a good time trial from Nieve. It's perfectly respectable. 37th place and 3:29 down on Tom Dumoulin, but he'd been passed, and he's not as fast as Nairo Quintana significantly. Well, look at these scenes. I mean, he's still being cheered on, a hugely popular rider, not just in Spain, but overall, throughout the world of cycling, I think nobody would have begrudged Joaquim Rodriguez a victory, a longed-for victory overall on the Vuelta. But it is not going to happen, and yet again on a Grand Tour, wearing the leader's jersey, when it comes to the final time trial in the third week, he's going to pull up short. So hard for a rider in modern cycling like Joaquim Rodriguez to actually see out a Grand Tour victory.
No, I mean, this poor guy has happened to him twice. I mean, we saw a 2010 Vuelta and also in the 2012 Giro, where he was in the leader's jersey in that final time trial and kind of had been one of the strongest climbers and had it taken away from him in that time trial in a near humiliating fashion. But he is a great bike rider, and it is a shame that kind of he does get beaten so badly sometimes in these situations.
Of course, there are opportunities. Not every Grand Tour has a long time trial, and this actually isn't long at 38.5 kilometres. You often see time trials that are much longer than that. You often see on Grand Tours on the Tour de France, for example, 2 long-form time trials. But the Vuelta organisers have been relatively lenient and given the climbers their opportunity to go and stamp their authority over the race, and they've pulled up short.
Well, I think that
the exceptional ride.
For that reason alone, I think it goes to just accentuate what an exceptional performance Tom Dumoulin is putting on. He's not had a prologue. Even the team time trial was neutralised. He's actually in this position after only one time trial, one 38-kilometre time trial in 3 weeks. So he is not only the best time trial in this race, he's probably one of the best climbers in the race.
Mike is burying himself here, his head nodding from side to side. He knows it's important. He can't just sit up. He's been badly beaten up here by Tom Dumoulin, but he still has a race, and he still has a podium position within his grasp. Part of it's down to him, what he can do. He's over 2.5 minutes now down on Tom Dumoulin, but that scarcely matters anymore. What is going to matter as he crosses in 16th place, 2:38 down on Dumoulin, what's going to matter for Micah is how far back Joaquim Rodriguez is. So that is the end of the time trial for Micah. Huge effort from him. Aru started off 2 minutes behind Micah, but looks to be closing that gap significantly. He's entered the final section now. A left-hander where the crowds start to thicken out, and he'll know that it's not far now, and he's paced himself pretty well, actually, Aru, and done as much as he possibly could have done in the face of terrible opposition from Dumoulin.
Yeah, he's on a great ride, and I think he's taken time out of Micah, and he'll prove to be one of the best. Apart from Valverde and Nairo Quintana, who've done best rides, Aru seems to have been the best climber when it comes to time trial today.
Well, just look at that clock. He had 1 minute and 50 seconds to defend, and we thought actually he lost a lot more time than that. If he gets in at 47.51, he will be the red jersey. I wonder if it's going to be enough. He lines himself up for a final effort. This is some recovery from Fabio Aru. He's closing in on the finishing line. It's going to be extremely close, you know. 47.54. Oh, 1:53 the gap in the end. That is an excellent ride.
That's incredible, but that's exactly what he expected. 2 minutes to the best climber. He's put 3 minutes into almost everybody else, but I think that means we have a proper race in our hands over the next few days.
Well, 1:50 he had to defend against Tom Dumoulin. 1:53 he has lost. 3 seconds will be the gap at the end of today between Fabio Aru and Tom Dumoulin. As close as that. Well, that ride by Aru has surprised just about everybody. I mean, who would have thought at the first intermediate split, when he lost 44 seconds, that he would end up being able to even come close to defending that time? All right, he didn't in the end, but limit it to a 3-second time gap at the end.
In a way, he's done what Tom Dumoulin was doing to him in the mountains, whereas Tom Dumoulin had to ride his race and pace it properly, not to lose too much time to Aru. Aru's done the same to Tom Dumoulin in the time trial. He's not got flustered. He's kind of had equal maturity and paced it and not got carried away and managed to limit the losses.
Rodriguez knows that the game is up. The time gaps are too big now. The 1 minute and 51 seconds has been surpassed as he passes 500 metres to go. Turns left, enters the crowded section, left-handed again, and then a couple more twists and turns before the clock finally stops on this brutal effort from Rodriguez. He's buried himself to the best of his ability in trying to defend his red jersey. No dishonour in that. It's not his speciality. He's suffered like a dog here, seeing his race lead slip through his fingers, seeing Aru get the better of him. Dumoulin just take chunks out of him, and see Micah also bite into his time. When the clock stops, we'll know how things will shake up relative to Micah and Rodriguez. But for the time being, as he crosses in 30th place, 3 minutes and 6 seconds down on Tom Dumoulin, that is the end of the race lead for Joaquim Rodriguez. But actually, not a bad time trial to finish 30th in that company.
No, and essentially, I mean, he's only lost just over a minute to Fabio Aru, and with the other climbers, I mean, it's not been a total failure for him today. I probably, to be honest, he imagined that he would lose 3 minutes to Tom Dumoulin. Now, that he will have set his sort of mind for, but Aru, that is disappointing for him, but again, it's not lost. He can still do this. And here we see from this graph, which is a bit simplistic, we can see the difference between climbers and time trialists. Like the climbers kind of, they do sort of want pace, but you see Aru is flattened off a bit at the end, whereas everyone kept plummeting down and losing time. Aru managed to stabilize it a little in the second half.
Well, a passing thought for Mathieu Bodnar before we get into the more important business of the day. A long wait in the leader's chair, knowing that he was going to be bumped by the end of the afternoon. 1:04 was Tom Dumoulin's stage-winning margin, but the significant gaps were to his main rivals. Alejandro Valverde and Nairo Quintana both put in good rides, but they started behind Dumoulin. First among the men who started ahead was Fabio Aru with a cushion of 1:50. He lost a minute 53. Joaquim Rodriguez had a minute 51 in the red jersey. He lost 3:06. Rafael Majka lost less, but had less to start with. A margin of 16. He lost 2 minutes 38.
Did you feel comfortable out there today?
Yeah, normally, but everybody is tired. I do it everything possible to get the best time, but still hard with Dumoulin when he's specialist. Okay.
Now, he still has a couple of jerseys, Joaquim Rodriguez, the green and the white, and he's still on course for the podium. But the race lead is gone, as he knew it would be before he started the stage.
Joaquim, una etapa muy dura. ¿Cómo juzgas tu prestación hoy?
No, una crono, al final, una crono de purito al final. No me he encontrado todo lo bien que yo quería, al final casi que iba mejor por el llano que no subiendo incluso, ¿no? Me ha costado muchísimo, sobre todo los repechos, coger ritmo. Donde mejor me he encontrado ha sido, ya te he dicho, por el llano, me veía con fuerza empujando. Lo tenía clarísimo que para que yo hiciera, o para que manteniera el liderato, Dumoulin no tenía que hacer una crono buena, sino tenía que hacer una crono normal. Y él no la ha hecho buena, sino es que la ha hecho muy buena. La ha ganado y encima con diferencia al segundo, con lo cual ha hecho una super crono el holandés. Con una crono así es imposible ganarle. Me ha sorprendido muchísimo Aru, el cual seguramente va a ser un comodín muy importante para lo que resta de vuelta.
El podio está en vista.
El podio me está, el perderlo también y el ganar la vuelta también, con lo cual puede suceder de todo y eso es lo que yo quiero, que sucedan cosas ahora mismo, que haya movimiento y llegar a Madrid o sexto o primero, eso sería una maravilla.
Well, first is obviously preferable to sixth, and as a result of being first for the second time on a stage in this Vuelta, Tom Dumoulin is first overall and back in the red jersey for the third time. Not that he'll have a comfortable ride in it to Madrid. After 8 summit finishes, the race leader's margin was a second. After the time trial, it's expanded to 3. An intermediate sprint bonus is all that separates Dumoulin and Fabio Aru. There is space opening up behind them though. Joaquim Rodriguez is at a minute 15, and with another 1:07 between him and Rafael Majka in 4th, he looks to have a good hold on the final podium place. Nairo Quintana and Alejandro Valverde have ridden themselves up to 5th and 6th. Then it's Esteban Chavez, Dani Moreno, Mikel Nieve and Louis Meintjes.
Was this result what you hoped for today?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I was first hoping for the stage win, and yeah, the second goal was to get the red jersey, and I got my goal, so I reached my goals, and it's very nice, and I'm really happy with it.
How difficult will it be for you and your team to defend this jersey to Madrid?
Yeah, very difficult. I mean, it's only 3 seconds. I was not surprised that Aru was doing so well in this TT. I mean, it was also a TT that pretty much suited him also. I mean, with the rolling hills and difficult finish, but yeah, 3 seconds is nothing. I mean, I could even lose it in Madrid in the bunch sprint if I'm on a small gap. So it's really nothing, and they will definitely put up a fight the coming days.